All right, everyone, we are coming back. All of our newcomers, thank you. This is Newsroom at Home, restaurants and COVID-19. We're going to start here in a minute. I just went over some housekeeping notes and wanted to thank you guys all for coming. Again, use that Q&A function to ask any questions that you might have for the panelists. We'll try to get to those at the end of the conversation. And then also I did do a little plug for our next event, June 18th at 10 a.m. Our host, Jackie Burrell, she will go over the details of that. We're very excited for it. And if you guys are looking to see any of our future events that we have or past events that we've done and want to listen to the recordings, you can go ahead and go to mercurynews.com/events. Or same thing, eastbaytimes.com/events, and check out what we got going on there. We'd love for you guys to poke around and listen in on the conversations that you might have missed. But why don't we go ahead and get started for today's conversation. I wanted to go ahead and introduce to you our Eat, Drink, Play and Features Manager, Jackie Burrell. Thanks, Jackie.
Thanks, Erin. Hi, everyone. So happy to have you here. We're all broadcasting from home, and I'm very much hoping that the construction project on the house across the street is not going to be hammering and sawing. So I want to tell you a little bit about the upcoming webinar, just give that a little plug, and then we'll get into the heart of what we're here to talk about today. We have a really cool thing starting this Sunday, which is June the 7th. We commissioned a novella from Oakland author Robin Sloan. He's the author of Mr. Penumbra's 24-Hour Bookstore and Sourdough. He's just a wonderful writer. He's written a 15-part mystery novella set in the Bay Area, and it's done expressly for you guys, for the Bay Area News Group readers. I've read it. It's wonderful. He doesn't mention the pandemic even once. I mean, it's like the antithesis of all the terrible headlines. So that'll be starting on Sunday. It'll be running all the way through till June 21st. And we are gonna have Robin on the Zoom conference call with us on the 18th at 10 o'clock, answering questions, talking about his other projects, giving us a few clues about what that ending might look like. It's very fun indeed. Anyway, as Erin said, I'm Jackie Burrell. I'm the features editor for the Bay Area News Group, which includes Linda.
I lost you, or you lost me.
Oh, hopefully you guys can see me and hear me okay.
Yes, we can.
Okay, great, thank you. I was introducing myself. I'm the features editor for the Mercury News and the East Bay Times. Born in California in sunny Santa Barbara, where I grew up thinking that avocados were free and that everyone landscaped with bougainvillea, that was a totally normal thing. Came up here to go to school, go Bears, met my husband my second day here, and I've been here ever since, mostly grousing about the price of avocados. Apparently you have to pay for them up here. I'm really happy to be working for these fine newspapers, and Eat, Drink, Play is my favorite thing in the world. And I'm lucky enough to work with a couple of wonderful restaurant-obsessed food writers, Linda Zavoral and Jessica Yadegaran. Linda, could you say a few words about yourself?
Sure. Can you folks hear me if you can't see me?
Oh. Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Great. Sorry, I'm not sure what's happened here with the video.
We can see you.
I can
you
see
can?
You.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay, I just can't see any of you. Well, good. Okay. Phew. Thanks so much, Jackie, and thank you, readers, for joining us. I'm Linda Zavoral. I'm a longtime Mercury News journalist and a Bay Area native. Born on the peninsula, grew up there and in the Sacramento area. Came back down to the Bay Area to attend journalism school at San Jose State, and I've been down in the Bay Area ever since. Although I do make frequent trips to Sacramento because that is a farm-to-fork capital, as we know. I've lived in the East Bay and Berkeley and Hayward, and have enjoyed the restaurant scene throughout the Bay Area. As we were preparing for this, I realized I actually know what my first sit-down restaurant experience in the Bay Area was. We lived in Redwood City, and while my parents would get dressed up to go up to, say, dinners at the Blue Fox in San Francisco, or Ricky's Hyatt House or Ricky's Swiss Chalet on the peninsula, those were not the places you would take the kids. So our first sit-down restaurant experience was at Stickney's, a much-loved Peninsula institution for many decades. And that's a name that will resonate with a number of you readers from the Peninsula. And we still hear occasionally from people who were sad about Stickney's not being around.
I'm sad it's not around. Jessica, can you tell us a little bit about you?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Jessica Yadegaran. I've been in the Bay Area for 15 years, but I'm a SoCal native. Graduated from San Diego State University with a degree in journalism and kind of climbed the coast. I stopped in San Luis Obispo for 2 years and kind of immersed myself in their amazing food and wine culture there, and then accepted a position with the then Contra Costa Times 2 years later. Been here ever since. I've written about everything from food and wine criticism to health and entertainment. Something you may not know about me is that I did take a hiatus. I disappeared for 2 years. I had an opportunity to move to the Pacific Northwest and worked there as a food and dining editor at Seattle Magazine. And fortunately, I suppose, Amazon didn't work out for my husband. So we came back to the Bay Area and Jackie gave me my job back. Thank you, Jackie.
My pleasure. I was so happy. I remember the day that you gave notice. I remember crying too. So happy to have you back. So for the next about 45 minutes, 50 minutes, we're going to be talking about restaurants in the age of COVID-19 and what has happened, the devastation that the shutdown has wrought for our beloved restaurant scene and the pivots that the chefs, restaurateurs, and diners have made in that intervening time. You're going to hear us use the word pivot a lot. We pivoted, they pivoted, we all pivoted. This is like the ice cream, you scream, we all scream. We all pivoted. So with that, we're gonna start with just a discussion amongst our panel, and then after about half an hour or so, we'll open that up and take any questions you guys may have. Down at the bottom of your Zoom screen, there's a little Q&A button. Just tap that to submit your questions. So let's get started talking about what some of those pivots were, kind of the broad picture, and then we can drill down a bit. Linda, you want to start us off?
Sure. The world changed, and the restaurant world changed March 16th, March 17th, with the shutdown orders, just as we were all getting ready to enjoy St. Patrick's Day with its corned beef sandwiches and Irish lamb stew and Irish coffees. Bars, of course, had to close down completely. Restaurants were allowed to stay open as essential businesses, thank goodness. And they swung into action. I mean, the industry has been incredibly impressive just in looking back at some of these dates. Restaurants took into account the health and safety of their employees, who they could bring back in, got PPE, got staffed up if they could, reopened for takeout and delivery. Many of them, of course, already had good takeout delivery models, thank goodness. With especially, barbecue joints and pizza places and whatnot, do a hefty business in that anyway. Others stepped up. And within a week, I was just looking back, many restaurants had come up with this clever idea to pull in funding to bring staffers back to work and use them to make meals for healthcare workers, other frontline employees. One of the first of these efforts here in the Bay Area was Chef Jessie Cool at Flea Street Cafe in Menlo Park. And she brought back staff from her museum cafe at the Cantor at Stanford. And she and a Stanford professor launched a nonprofit called Meals of Gratitude, and have been making thousands of meals for those folks on the peninsula. Others formed other food trucks, and other groups formed similar services. And these are all win-win. They keep staffers employed, and they provide these very welcome meals to folks on the front lines. The next thing we saw was restaurants realizing that they had access to things like bleach and toilet paper, and turning their operations into drive-through groceries, if you will. Alex Holt of Flights Restaurants, he turned his Los Gatos location into one of those for contact-free meals and including, plus many rolls of toilet paper. In fact, the rolls of toilet paper, the industrial size ones, were 75 feet long. And you could also buy from other restaurants in Los Gatos. He was, and I think still is, offering foods from Centinove Pizza, Nothing Bundt Cakes, desserts, Juice Company, freshly pressed juices, beans from Los Gatos Coffee Roasting Company, and craft beer from Loma Brewing, just around the corner.
It was a magnificent pivot, one that really served both his restaurant and the public. Jessica, you want to elaborate?
Yeah, I completely remember, you know, what Linda was saying about March 16th. I got an email from chef owner Anthony Strong of Prairie in the San Francisco Mission District. And I remember he was one of the first to turn his modern fine dining restaurant into a pantry, offering not only meal kits, but basic groceries, Clorox wipes with every purchase, dairy, produce. During the process of obtaining permits for all of this, I don't know how he did it so quickly. He found out that his great-grandparents had also opened a general store in their working-class Iowa town during the Great Depression. And little did we know back then that we'd be seeing similar numbers to that era in unemployment rates and stuff. It's really just astonishing what's happened in a little over, 2.5 months. A lot of people followed suit in the Bay Area. In East Bay, I can think of several, including in my neighborhood, Beer House in Walnut Creek, vacuum packing, not only its phenomenal brisket, but also offering latex-free gloves. Augie's Montreal Deli, I remember they were on KQED about their incredible pivots in West Berkeley. It wasn't just pantry pivots and grocery pivots, though. We saw people in the past few months have completely overhauled their business model. I mean, 3 Michelin-starred chefs, restaurants like Joshua Skeen's at Saison, becoming a smokehouse. Homestead in Oakland, a new American bistro, opening up the Humble Sandwich. I think of Teleferic Barcelona, a Spanish restaurant in Palo Alto. They not only started offering their delicious sangria in these huge mason jars, but they launched an online and brick and mortar Spanish market where you can get, your piquillo peppers and anchovies and Iberian ham. And I think that not only filled, the necessities that people needed at the time for takeout and stuff, but it also filled a void. I was asking Linda, since she lives closer down there, about if there are any other Spanish markets. And so that's going to be a permanent fixture for them.
Wonderful. Some of these changes worked better than others. Jessica, can you give us some examples of some remarkable pivots?
Oh boy, yeah, I have a lot of examples.
We like examples.
I think Teleferic is a really, really good one. But overall, I think the concepts that chefs were planning or always wanting to do anyway, or something that fulfilled a void like the Teleferic one, will be the most successful. I think of Chef Kyle Itani. He owns Hopscotch, but also Itani Ramen in Uptown Oakland. And he had been wanting to launch a sushi concept. His background is in sushi, in fact. And so he had wanted to do that for about a year, but then COVID-19 hit and he thought, well, my dining room is sitting here empty. And so many people have lost their jobs in the Japanese restaurant biz. So he launched right inside Itani Ramen, he launched Nikkei Sushi. And he kept the price points accessible, and it's takeout only. And I can't imagine that that's not going to stay long term once people come back to the ramen shop. It's going to go. I think it's going to continue to do well. Another one I can think of Also in Oakland, in the Fruitvale district, is James Beard Award-winning chef Night Yun of Niam Bai. It's a Cambodian restaurant. She is permanently changing her business model to a quick service. She's got this awesome outdoor patio that she's going to be turning into kind of a type of garage eatery this summer with a walk-up window. People are going to be able to still sit, you know, inside if they want, but if you take a look at that dining room, you'll see how tiny it is. There's no way, according to the governor's guidelines, that, you know, half her dining room is what, if she moved those tables around, she'd get maybe 10, 11 people in there. That's not a sustainable business model. So she came up with this one. And I think of one more down in the Tri-Valley in Livermore, Eduardo Posado of the Southwestern inspired Posado restaurant. He completely revamped his menu. He added 26 new takeout dishes that are kind of affordable, and he pivoted, you know, being unable to find rabbit to braise and poblanos to stuff. He moved to more of a casserole, burrito, and chili verde model. And I've talked to customers that say they actually prefer the stuff he's offering now. So I think that's going to stay for the long term too.
Love it. Linda, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I want to mention one that's a little bit newer. Academic Coffee in downtown San Jose is in an area where there aren't too many restaurants. It's near some of the sadly closed for now theaters, City Lights Theater and San Jose Stage Company. This coffee house had offered breakfast pastries previously, but now they've expanded. They're making these hot little Belgian waffles in the morning and pizzas in the afternoon. And they're also making their own jams to sell. And they're selling breads from a nearby bakery. And I could see them as well as some household products and big growlers full of cold brew coffee. So I can see them becoming a little more of a market for that downtown neighborhood going forward. It wouldn't surprise me if they continue offering all those.
Love it. One of our guests today just sent a note on the chat feature mentioning also Fast Food Français in Sausalito, which has been doing pantry boxes, shelter-in-place pantry boxes, including baking kits. So if you are having trouble finding flour, I'm betting they have flour there too. One phrase we keep hearing a lot of is that restaurants are never going to be the same, which just, my heart just weeps at the very idea. Linda, what do people mean when they say that, and is it true?
Yeah, sadly, it's looking true in many cases, but hope springs eternal, because I know we love our restaurant experiences. We're used to celebrating life's big occasions at restaurants, you know, birthdays, anniversaries, retirements. So hoping that we can go back to this at some point. In the meantime, though, there are going to be some casualties. Predictions have been for 25 to 30% to, in some areas, up to 50% of restaurants not making it through this COVID crisis. Already, we've seen some longtime places shut down. Clark's Charcoal Broiler in Mountain View, which had been making burgers and shakes for 75 years, closed because of the change in business. Even though they did have a takeout model, it just wasn't sustainable. And in the East Bay, Laleem's had been in Berkeley for 35 years and decided that they needed to close the doors permanently. And then there's a certain type of restaurant, though, that I don't think we're going to see making a comeback anytime soon, and that would be the salad bar buffet restaurant. Sadly, Sweet Tomatoes. That chain, which started in San Diego, 35 or 40 years ago as Soup Plantation, and was known up here as Sweet Tomatoes. The CEO said he couldn't imagine health authorities ever allowing that model to continue, and they couldn't see a way to pivot enough from that kind of model, unless in the future there's some way to have people serving you on the other side of those salad bars and buffets Well, let's face it, that industry had already added sneeze guards and plexiglass years ago. They were ahead of everyone on that part. And beyond those restaurants, by the way, very affordable places for a lot of families. So that's a sad, with the all you can eat or beverage and dessert included model. But this is going to extend to things like, your favorite taqueria. The salsa bar is closed now and it's going to stay closed. They'll be, putting your pico de gallo in little plastic containers and sending them home with you or bringing them to your table once they open for in-house business.
Jessica?
Yeah, when I hear this phrase, I immediately think about the way that the paper-thin profit margins and how just hard it is to sustain a restaurant in the Bay Area without a pandemic. High rent, retaining labor and the high costs around labor, the fact that people can't live here who work in the restaurant industry. A lot of things are going to have to change for an industry that was already bleeding cash. That said, I also think about the exponential growth of commissary kitchens over the last year or two in the Bay Area and across the country. This unplanned increase in takeout and delivery might lead to many of these standalone restaurants joining their leagues, quite frankly. And I also think that maybe, I don't know, the fast casual model may appear to be more tenable for a lot of these people. And, but who knows? That said, if they continue to adapt and engage their communities until there's a vaccine, perhaps we can retain our sit-down model to some extent and it will survive.
Yeah. It won't be communal tables in that sit-down model though.
No, not unless you're dining with your sheltering in place party. Yeah. There's going to be some interesting questions at the hostess counter.
I was thinking about how much of the dining experience, just how social it is. And my last birthday, we went to Shakewell in Oakland and we're having tapas and people were sharing not just the tapas at the table, but tapas between tables. You'd look over at your neighbor and say, ooh, what's that? And they'd hand it over. And that's not going to happen anymore. In fact, it may be, this may change the dating scene too, Boy, things are serious. He shared his food with me today.
Yeah. Next level.
Yeah, next level. So what are the biggest challenges facing these restaurants now? What is the future going to look like? We've been seeing photos from all over the world as restaurants start to reopen. In Amsterdam, for example, there's this adorable thing. It makes me, well, I'm not going to Amsterdam anytime soon, am I? But what they did was set up these little individual greenhouses for dining so that diners could be completely socially isolated from everyone else. And then they would serve the food on like a long handled tray into there. Amazing. Other restaurants have been dealing with the social distancing thing and the 50% capacity thing. One place in Virginia, you may have seen this on some of the late night talk show hosts were talking about this, where this Michelin-starred restaurant, the owner was worried that his guests would feel weird in a half-empty dining room. So he put in mannequins, which are not creepy at all. Anyway, Jessica, I know you've written a lot about the state guidelines for how places can open. Can you talk a bit about that and what you see as the future here?
Yeah, talking to the restaurateurs, I think their biggest challenge right now is how they're going to implement some of the governor's guidelines with little to no direction. They're wanting to have open dialogue, open conversation with their local government and health officials. They want support. Some of these things are vague and some of them are incredibly specific. If you have a tiny 500 square foot kitchen and you're being told that you have to direct traffic flow in one direction all the way and then one direction, a separate direction all the way out, but in your restaurant it's so tiny that everybody goes in and out the same hall, that's going to be really difficult. Upgrading your ventilation system, who has the money for that? Extra staffing to meet the increased cleaning and customer monitoring duties that we talked about before, the, you know, quote unquote bouncer or hall monitor that's supposed to make sure everybody's wearing their masks unless they're eating or drinking. One thing that is concrete, at least right now, as Jackie mentioned, is that 6 feet of distance between tables. We think of Posada, the Livermore restaurateur that I mentioned, who revamped his menu. He also added, he spent about, I don't know, 2,000 or so bucks on these, I think they're about 4 to 5 feet tall patio dividers to give his customers an extra layer of privacy and, you know, security when they're dining there. He's hoping that that'll work and keep people coming back. And other things you'll see, of course, the masks and gloves for your servers, the PPE we see here for Voyager Coffee implemented when they open their new location solely to serve frontline workers. What else will we see? Temperature reads at the door, as you guys know. We won't be seeing any preset tables. They're going to be setting that table when you walk in the door from your car where you've been waiting for your table. You're going to be encouraged to place your order online beforehand. You might be encouraged to use the menu online as well, and there won't be any plastic menus. It'll all be disposable. What else? There's going to be reservations and almost like prefixed time slots, you know, like a French Laundry, except it's a seating at your favorite taqueria where, you know, there's a 5, a 7, and a 9. There's a slew. I mean, it was a 12-page document that the governor released in mid-May. These are just a few of the many things, but one thing that was missing from Newsom's guidelines was the idea of the shared appetizers that Jackie was talking about on her birthday. I mean, tapas have been hot for like a decade, and it's how we know, it's how we eat now. And I think I posed this question to a couple of restaurateurs, and they're just thinking about coursing out the whole experience, including the shared appetizers. So like what Eduardo over at Posada is thinking about doing is, you know, take his Parmesan encrusted cauliflower. He's thinking about just coursing out maybe 4 or 5 florets per person and putting that on a tiny, tiny plate with a little dollop of your own aioli. And who knows, that could end up extending to tater tots and French fries, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, I wanted to mention that we're going to see a first test of a lot of Newsom's guidelines starting tomorrow in Santa Clara County,
right.
Which is opening for outdoor dining. We'd already seen Napa open, and we sent our colleague Joan Morris up there, where folks were just so happy to get out and eat again together. Naturally, just members from the same family, same household at a table. But it's going to be interesting. I've been surveying restaurants here, and boy, those who have big patios are sitting pretty. The folks at the Cusamanos, who own Palermo restaurant in San Jose, in the Cannery Midtown district, they wisely, a couple of years ago, turned the parking lot into an outdoor dining space. And they are raring to go. They are going to be opening for outdoor dining tomorrow. Duodeca in Los Gatos is going to reopen for outdoor dining on Saturday. Also tomorrow, Sienna and Willow Glen, Chef David is going to open the back patio, and he's got some ideas for some other outdoor space there. I am hearing that some restaurants are going to take a wait and see attitude, especially if they are in areas that could be affected by the protests. And also if they're an area where there's a curfew continuing. In San Jose, where the curfew is off, Sushi Randy Musser of Sushi Confidential, he also has that great new patio at his downtown location at San Pedro Square. He says he's thinking of holding off about a week because of the prospects of protests and other issues there. And I suspect that will be the same for most of San Pedro Square unless they make us a quick pivot today and announce that more places are opening. But I think it'll be people will be rolling out these options. And if they are in restaurant rows, main streets where there could be marchers, I suspect they will wait a week for things to calm down on that front.
That slow rollout is similar to what Napa did. When they got permission to open, a few places jumped in there, but a lot of places were like, we're gonna wait and see how that goes for you guys, and then we'll slowly do it. We're also starting to see some of that reservation model with the wineries, like a bunch of Sonoma wineries now are, you can go tasting. It has to be a wine and food experience, and you can't come on the property without a reservation. And it's not a snooty thing at all. It's how they're maintaining the traffic flow, making sure it doesn't get overwhelmed.
Right.
So as these restaurants are grappling with the issue of how do you reopen in our new abnormal, it's not even a new normal, it's just weird every which way. Linda, you want to talk about that because some have.
Yes, surprisingly, when I started getting word that some restaurants that have been in the works for a long time were going to go ahead and reopen, I shouldn't say reopen, open for the first time, have their grand opening, minus the, no mayor and the ribbon cutting kind of thing, and certainly no diners inside, I was surprised. And we did a big story, who in their right mind would open a restaurant during a pandemic? But as David Kinch, the 3 Michelin-starred chef of Manresa in Los Gatos said, he pretty much had no choice. You've got, mortgages to pay. You've got, chefs, employees you've already drafted for a new project. You've got to open and try to get some money coming in. So his long-planned Mentone restaurant, a more casual French-Italian Mediterranean concept in Aptos, opened as planned. And Kinch himself is there several days a week doing things like folding pizza boxes and helping out in the kitchen as needed. And we've also seen a number of others in Fremont. A restaurant called Mas Fuego was a huge, expensive build out. And the folks behind that place, and it's in the Pacific Commons area, they figured they would open up. They have been doing meals for frontline workers through Jose Andres' World Central Kitchen. Others that have opened have included Pineapple Thai in Cupertino at Main Street Cupertino Complex. Backyard, Chef Robert Simpson opened a new location in Campbell. And he works out of a commissary kitchen part of the time in San Jose. So he's ahead of the curve on that. And Scott Seafood in San Jose had to find a new location because of development. And so they figured they just opened last week downtown San Jose. Now the challenge for some of these folks, especially say, Mas Fuego and Pineapple Thai, they aren't existing brands. And so the challenge for them is, they don't have an existing clientele to draw from. So they're hoping that folks in those areas seek them out and order food. Backyard already is a known commodity, and they're doing well at the new Campbell location. But it's going to be important. And Scott Seafood was dependent upon people coming to downtown San Jose for concerts and events at the Center for Performing Arts and the other theaters. So they're looking to their longstanding customers to order, come do pickup or order delivery.
Totally. Jessica.
Yeah, before I talk about the new places opening during the pandemic, I thought I'd mention when you guys were talking about outdoor dining that a lot of cities, as you mentioned, San Jose, San Francisco, San Mateo, have plans to increase their outdoor dining capacity, especially, at the height of summer, in parking lots and public parks and sidewalks. One city has taken it a step further. In the city of Berkeley, the mayor there has written up legislation to close all of the city streets during restaurant hours, so people can just walk freely and feel safe with plenty of distance between them to eat. We'll see. The city council is supposed to vote on that this week. We'll see what happens, but that could be sort of a fun way to enjoy the summer and support local businesses while feeling safe and not having to worry about metered parking in downtown Berkeley.
Love that.
Yeah. But okay, to get back to the opening restaurants in this new normal, what I'm seeing is people opening, either out of desperation, like Palmetto in the former Flora building, that iconic Art Deco building in downtown Oakland. He was supposed to open in March, but obviously that didn't happen. So he opened on March 16th, and 2 weeks later there were riots. So business is very slow there. Access to some of the ingredients he's used to doing for his Caribbean chop and kind of steakhouse models are hard to come by. And I spoke to him yesterday, and I think he had one order, so the whole day. And so it's really difficult. Others have had better luck. I think of also in Oakland, down on Piedmont Avenue, Mika Talmore. She opened her new restaurant, Pamela, at the end of March. I remember the Berkeley side headline said something like, Pamela opens at the absolute worst time in history. But she made it work. She had a customer base from her old restaurant, The Bite, which was just actually a couple doors down on Piedmont Avenue. She had been doing catering in the interim. She'd been doing pop-ups, keeping her name out there. Her business model was also right on target, because she's doing a lot of grab-and-go stuff for busy families, a lot of dips, her famous hummus, a lot of sauces, bowls that you can customize. She also engaged her community via social media, and I think that's going to be really, really big going forward. She made a video of her crew wearing masks and walking down Piedmont Avenue to the tune of Rocky's Eye of the Tiger, with their whisks in hand. And that got a lot of clicks, at least in the Bay Area. So another example I can think of is Lido Saldano. He's the chef owner of Los Moles. It's a mole-themed Mexican restaurant. He has a couple of locations in Alameda County, and he's opening his first spot in Walnut Creek. He negotiated, with the city-owned building, he negotiated a 20% rent reduction for the first 2 years that his business has gross sales of less than $200,000. And that's kind of a historically expensive building. It's where the former Tender Greens was. So he plans to break ground in a couple months. We'll see what happens there.
And that's, I'm sorry, which city did you say that was?
I'm sorry, Walnut Creek.
Walnut Creek, okay, yeah. So we have got a bunch of questions from listeners. The first question was, what about Walnut Creek? So there we go.
Yay!
Jessica, can you explain what a commissary kitchen is?
Oh, gosh, it is it's a multi-use, it's a kitchen that has a bunch of restaurants essentially inside of it. Everybody gets to rent out, imagine like a little cubicle of your own, and you have people, you can prepare your food in there, you have fewer staff, you have fewer square footage. You can almost imagine like a hairdresser that rents a stall in a hair salon. It's kind of the same idea. And then you have runners sending out delivery and takeout that way. Some commissary kitchens I know of, like in LA and Portland, have seating outside. So you can go and you can order on an iPad from any of the kitchens that you want to right there, and then sit outside on a bench and eat and get your own cutlery and everything. So there's a couple of ways to do it, but you know, DoorDash just opened a commissary kitchen in on the peninsula, and that's increased business for a lot of these restaurants that we were talking about that decided to do delivery and takeout.
Nice. We have a question here about whether it's going to be safe to eat inside restaurants. What about the airflow? Because there was that study is that in China, I think, where they mapped out the air conditioner and then the tables.
It's really tricky. I mean, we're not, and you know, scientists or engineers. It's really tricky, but I know the restaurateurs that I've spoken to are really worried about liability with this issue. They can't upgrade their ventilation systems. That's the last thing they have money for right now. So they're trying to figure out how to navigate that. At first, it was like, keep your windows and doors open. And then they told them to close them because of pests and vermin. And now they're telling them to open them again. It's confusing.
Definitely. Linda, there's a question here. What about restaurants what kind of pivots are you seeing in restaurants that served blue collar people?
Blue collar people. Now that's interesting. But most of them probably had takeout and delivery models.
Yeah.
I haven't seen, trying to think what pivots for blue collar restaurants.
I'm thinking of Arajo's kitchen in San Jose. They have 2 locations and they're both near churches, and they have a high blue collar clientele that come after church service gets out on Sunday, and they want to sit and take up like 2 or 3 tables with family and have a nice long meal. They are doing well. The last time I spoke to their general manager, they're doing well. Delivery and takeout is basically accounting for 60%. It's basically replaced their walk-in business, is from what I understand.
You know, that reminds me that as soon as the ability to resume construction occurred in San Jose, in Santa Clara Valley, I mean, the construction boom is huge down here. And a lot of places that serve the construction workers, business picked up tremendously for them. Angelou's Taqueria, which is across the street, near 2nd and Santa Clara streets, and some of the places on the Alameda that do burritos, breakfast burritos in particular, construction workers pick them up. They're massive. They last you, well, maybe at least half the shift. I don't know about the whole shift. And I did a list yesterday, we posted yesterday, of Black-owned restaurants that you can support during this crisis with your social protest dollars, social justice dollars. But there are Black restaurants that are situated near churches that did a lot of business on Sundays.
Oh.
And with those churches closed, business has gone down. So entrepreneurs are encouraging people to think of those blue collar restaurants situated in those neighborhoods and consider spending some of your dollars at those Black-owned restaurants on other days of the week.
You know, you guys, I thought of another one, Gott's Roadside. I don't know if people would consider that blue collar, but it is a fast casual burger joint. And they also didn't really have to pivot. They've done remarkably well. Their earnings, when I spoke to their CEO last month, were up, I think, a percentage point over Walnut Creek, Palo Alto, Napa, and San Francisco, where they have locations. So,
we've got a question about these the pivots. Are these solutions actually profitable for these restaurants, or is it a Band-Aid for a gushing wound?
Yeah, potentially Band-Aid for a gushing wound. We're asking, essentially the governor is asking, we're all asking restaurants to spend more with less. So they're gonna have to increase their sanitation, cleaning policies. They're going to have to hire more people to do that stuff. They're going to have to rethink their, their tableware and how they do a lot of things. They're going to have to be buying a lot of plexiglass and dividers and heat lamps, as Linda said earlier. So time will tell, I think, but it's very scary to be a restaurant owner right now.
Well, and diners are going to have to realize that prices are likely to go up. I heard from a reader in San Jose who was complaining about the price of a burger at an East San Jose place. And these restaurants were already struggling with the cost of labor before this pandemic hit. And it's just going to be so very challenging. And again, as I said, I think one of the keys is going to be what kind of deal can you cut with your landlord? What kind of federal assistance or other grants and funding can you get to help see you through this? And your loyal customers hopefully are going to have to be willing to, shell out a few more bucks for their favorite dishes.
I've also talked to restaurateurs that are planning on keeping, some of their things like meal kits around a little bit longer. They're considering starting catering if they have to make ends meet. So, it might be the idea that some of these things linger, like you go out to dinner and you have your pasta and stuff and you bring home some yeast and flour to make bread that night, Right.
And at Cascal and Mountain View, their paella to go has been the most popular item on the takeout menu.
Yep.
And I've seen others adding paella, which is not, the dish most of us would cook at home. So yeah, some of these pivots, some of these pivots could be permanent and perhaps even profitable.
Yeah.
We've got a question here about food trucks and how will they make it through?
Well, the food truck renaissance had slowed a bit. And already a number of, the food truck events that we were seeing had slowed down. It'll be interesting to see if those rev back up this summer, because in effect, they're like farmers markets, which have been continuing. There can be plenty of social distancing, a line. So that certainly could work. Where they're going to lose business, I suspect, would be those who made regular trips to the high-tech office complexes, a number of them in the South Bay Peninsula and in the East Bay, San Ramon area. You see a certain food truck would always be there, say on Thursday or something. Well, if folks are working from home, they've lost that business. So it'll be interesting to see with the warm weather and the easing of regulations. It'd be great to see those make a huge comeback.
It's so funny you say that, Linda. I remember talking to someone from Curry Up Now a couple of weeks ago, who they changed, you went to their website and instead of, the Embarcadero or Montgomery or, that area, they were going to gas stations in Oakland because they saw a need there, and it was, obviously completely dead in downtown San Francisco. So.
Right. A number of them. Oh, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, I think that's the one that was, Curry Up Now was going to open a brick and mortar at Bishop Ranch in San Ramon.
They did. And instead they just went and parked their truck there in the interim. And people were flocking over because it kind of was a safe way to feel like you're doing, you're doing something, you're kind of eating out a little bit.
In a certain sense, the food trucks, they already had the takeout and delivery model.
Right.
I think it's going to do well this summer.
It'll be interesting. A number of them also started parking at hospitals and healthcare centers.
Right.
And providing meals to workers. And it could be that they will find some new clients. I don't know if, say the Kaiser medical centers have reopened their in-house cafeterias yet. But if not, having a food truck pull up, different ones. We've certainly got a number of healthy ones, in addition to the crazy food combos.
We've got a question going back to the thing, Jessica, that you were talking about body temperatures at restaurants as part of the reopening thing. Someone was asking, sorry, a bunch more questions just came in and that question disappeared. Let me find it again. Will restaurant staff be obligated to have their body temps taken before reporting to work?
Yes. Yes, I believe that's part of Gavin Newsom's guidelines for the restaurants.
Oh, and then on food trucks again, a note, and she's absolutely right, a couple of the wineries that don't have restaurants, in the reopening for the wineries, they had to have food service in order to reopen. Well, a couple of them have been inviting food trucks so they can reopen.
That's smart.
So smart.
Yes.
And I know Matchbook Wines up in Zamora has always had food trucks, so they open.
So many of them do, in Livermore too.
Yeah. Let's see. Not so much a question, but an observation. We live in downtown Walnut Creek and have spent a fair share toward keeping our local restaurants running. I noticed that the white tablecloth places like Massimo's have a tougher time with packaging meals for takeout. Although delicious, the presentation is less than desirable.
Mm.
Yeah, I agree. And that's why a lot of fine dining places you hear about are doing things differently. They're putting different things on their menu. Walnut Creek Yacht Club, down the street from Massimo's, stopped doing a lot of their, fresh seafood dishes and started making soups, just soups and cocktails, gumbo, things that, chowders, things that don't exactly need to look pretty when they arrive.
Right.
One word for the diners, I think, and I've ordered some of these fine dining meals for takeout. I think it's smart if you can, and if you feel safe enough doing so, to go do the pickup yourself as opposed to using one of the third-party delivery systems, because that way you can, in fact, what I've often done is frankly drive up and order there and wait so that the food is super fresh. You're carrying the packaging level. It's not going to get spilled or overturned or get cold during the delivery.
Linda, that's such a good point. And also you'll be helping the restaurants out tremendously.
Exactly.
Because once the emergency, sort of label is lifted, these folks are going to go back to having to pay that 20 to 30% fee to places like, DoorDash and whatnot.
Exactly.
Yeah. I love this question because so many people have turned to and grown more skilled at home cooking. How do restaurants draw people back out?
Ooh,
that's a good question.
Very good question.
I think even some of those, I think people are so desperate to get out and connect with friends and whatnot. The fabulous Zoom meetings with your extended family and friends have been wonderful, but I suspect people are going to want to get out.
Yeah, I guess it goes back to the heart of why do we eat out? Mm-hmm. Why do we go? It's to have an experience.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to be going out for that experience, for getting something like the paella they don't want to bother making at home, to celebrate something, but it's the experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, people may be tired of Dad's gourmet meatloaf experiments by now.
Yeah.
How are food safety inspections happening in this environment?
Oh, wow. That is a big question I have, let me tell you. And when the guidelines came out, the Newsom's guidelines a couple weeks ago, several restaurateurs I was speaking with said, so who's going to monitor all this stuff? Nobody's told us. Who's going to come and check and make sure your bouncer is, doing his job? Who's going to come and see if you're scrubbing that toilet every couple of hours, where before you just had to kind of stock the toilet paper and whatnot? I think it remains to be seen. And that's why these restaurants are so just chomping at the bit to have that dialogue with their local governments.
Right.
I don't have the answer to that.
Well, and customers are going to have, I think you're going to have to do a lot of self-policing. If you see, obviously, if you see, servers and others without masks and gloves, you may need to just decide to take your business elsewhere.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, cool. There's a note from a reader saying that Livermore is considering closing First Street and allowing restaurants to expand seating on the main street there.
Oh, yay.
Sweet. That's a great
perfect
spot.
place for
Like
it.
Berkeley, I love that. I think that's a great idea.
And there's so many great restaurants on that street. That would be
Yeah.
super.
I heard that First Street Ale House has been doing tailgates as their
Tailgate Tuesdays. Yeah.
yeah, love that.
Yeah.
That's great.
And they have a new butcher shop in Livermore that people are loving right now. They opened during the pandemic. And, you know, talk about filling a void with, you know, if people can't get the cuts of meat, you know, that they're used to getting right now, they can get that, and they can get a sandwich and support a local family at the same time.
Yeah. There's a question here about delivery places like DoorDash and Grubhub. The question is, what about them that are now delivering from non-commercial kitchens? I don't think you can deliver from non-commercial. Commissary, yes.
Yeah, what
But
do you
that's
mean?
a commercial. I don't know. I think a commissary kitchen is a commercial kitchen.
Yes, it's a commercial kitchen that's shared, a shared commercial kitchen.
And it has to abide by all the health code.
Of course.
And caterers would be in that. Caterers
Yeah.
who have pivoted to a lot of home delivery of family meals in particular.
Yes.
They also have to follow all of the health precautions and rules.
Yes, sorry if we didn't mention that. A commissary kitchen is a shared commercial kitchen.
There's a question here. What's the future of condiment bars?
Ooh, Linda, you want to take that one?
There's no future for condiment bars. No, sadly, things are going to be packaged for you, or someone will come around with a ketchup container and give you another few squirts. It's going to be it's going to be challenging if you were used to loading up on a certain thing. And for example, I know someone who is an orange sauce fiend, and if you live in the San Jose area, orange sauce is is a sauce of choice at La Victoria and every other taqueria now. And she was accustomed to grabbing that squirt bottle and just drenching her meal with orange sauce. But luckily, they also sell it to go. So you may, and who knows, you may want to bring your own condiments.
Yeah, and Newsom's
sometimes
guidelines
bring little spices, and I've been known to bring freshly ground pepper.
Oh, wow! I didn't know that about you.
There you go.
For those of you in the East Bay who are unfamiliar with orange sauce, it's not the sweet chili sauce that we East Bayers slather all over our burritos. It's opaque and it's creamy and it doesn't look spicy, but it is extremely spicy. So just saying, Linda, props to you for slathering everything in that. That stuff is hot.
Oh no, I don't. That's a
reader.
That's our friend Karen does that.
Oh, our former theater critic.
Well, but yeah, you guys, on the guidelines, I mean, Newsom essentially said it's going to be single serving as is recommended. If like the bigger ketchup bottles and stuff is unavoidable, people are going to have to do that themselves. They're not going to have somebody do it for you. You have to go get it yourself, just like you're going to go get your salt and pepper, little packets and your sugars and stuff. There isn't going to be a little thing in the center of the table with ketchup and mustard or whatever.
Here's someone who's explaining that he's in group event sales coordinating, catering for large-scale events. And from what I can tell, my career is no longer relevant in today's society. If I wanted to stay in hospitality, what direction would you recommend now? #ready to work.
Wow, that's a challenge. I feel bad for anyone involved in, because let's face it, and Silicon Valley was built on events. I mean, so many of these high-tech companies had launch events. They were the last ones, even in bad times, the high-tech companies would still do holiday parties. It's going to be challenging for the hospitality industry, the hotels, which have not really opened back up. And a number of caterers have pivoted, as I hinted before, to doing family meals. And it may be that there will be more of those, say if a family's having a backyard party or celebration, a number did it for high school and college graduations and hired caterers to cater a backyard event. But boy, the big events, I'm just hoping that we somehow get back to normal.
Yeah.
We will. We need a vaccine.
We do. It's 11 o'clock. We still have a lot of questions. I think if you guys want to hang out a little bit longer, we'll just take a couple more and then we'll wrap up. Do you guys think most servers and employees will be returning?
Some.
I mean, they need work.
Well, they need work. Some short-term have been making more with the unemployment and the bonus, the $600 bonus, but that won't go on forever. I guess I have not heard of too many restaurant owners having trouble getting
people back. Yeah, me neither.
Oh, someone just said salt and pepper shakers are gone.
They are
gone.
They are
gone.
Most likely, you have to ask for it. Some of Newsom's guidelines were recommended and some were mandatory. So it's recommended that you do everything as single serving as possible, disposable little packets. But if it's unavoidable, then you just have to sanitize them between like every single customer that sits down. They have to sanitize those tables so many times a day. Yeah.
Well, I wonder in some of the fine dining places where the waiter comes around with the ginormous pepper mill, if they'll be doing that with salt too.
Probably.
I don't know because table side stuff is over. I mean, having your guacamole made for you, having your bananas flambe or whatever made for you, that's not gonna, or having your Caesar salad tossed at the table, that's all gone.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Although if you're at a Michelin starred or other fine dining place, if you ask for salt, they will be offended, thinking that they did not season it properly. It should be properly seasoned, at least in terms of the salt component.
Yeah, and how often do we eat at those places, right?
Then there was a question about the restaurants that pivoted to grocery stores. What is the permitting process for something like that?
Who knows? It's not easy. That's why I was so impressed when Strong, chef owner Strong of Prairie, did it so quickly. I was so shocked. I have no idea what the permitting process is.
I know that sometimes
business reporter question.
That's right. And when these cities and counties all issued a state of emergency orders, those orders enabled them to do things like skip the bidding process for purchases and things like that. I wonder if those perhaps allowed these sorts of uses to change.
Yeah, that could be. I'm sure it varies by county as well. And then this is the last question we'll take. Home cooking has been a secret filler during this pandemic, neighbors cooking for their neighbors. Have you been seeing an effect on restaurants of these semi-legal or not quite legal food prep and delivery systems? We haven't heard much about it. I mean, I know it's been going on.
Of course it's happening. My mom has been, co-sheltering in place cooking, if that's the right word, with her neighbor. She's like, oh, I'm throwing a salmon fillet on the barbecue. You want me to put one for you too? And she's like, sure. So they've been doing that for each other, but I don't know if it's to the on scale to affect restaurants, unless they're doing it for hundreds of people. I don't know.
Right. I would just suggest if people, if you have favorite restaurants, mom and pops especially, that you don't think are going to make it, give them some of your business. You can always stay inside and bake bread and perfect whatever recipes next winter when the weather is dreadful and we wimpy Californians don't want to venture outside.
And when the lockdown happens again, perhaps.
And if there's another lockdown, but while you can support these businesses, many of them are bringing in so few orders. A small taqueria I stopped by, the owner said, he says, I'm staying open for him. And he sort of, looked over his shoulder at the cook at the flat top. And he said, the day before he'd brought in something like $15, $16, and that was it. So there are just so many people dependent upon these jobs in this business.
Yeah. And on that unhappy note, we'll draw this to a close. I want to thank everyone who came and joined us for this, and invite you to come back on June, God, I can't even remember what month it is. It's all a blur. June 18th, when we'll be talking with Robin Sloan, and be sure to check your newspaper this Sunday for the first installment of The Strange Case of the New Golden Gate. So again, that'll be on June the 18th. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
See ya. Email us.